Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is kind of a shorter one that I have planned for you guys today, but in this one, we're going to be looking at the top 10 changes coming to Ark Survival Ascended. The game is set to release in 2 to 3 weeks. We're not exactly sure on the release date, and Wildcard is still gatekeeping a ton of information about the game, but we do have some pretty cool knowledge about it. So today, again, we're going to be ranking the top 10 changes coming to Ark Survival Ascended that are different from how they were in Ark Survival Evolved. Let's get started. Starting the list at number 10, we have the island. I think it's a pretty interesting decision to remove all other maps from the game. I know it came from a logistics standpoint because they don't have time to include the remastered versions of all the other maps. It's still an interesting choice nonetheless. Anybody who played Island LDL knows how different the game is when you don't have access to the creatures and resources from the other maps. On the island, there aren't really any good spots for solos. The caves are super dominant, and it's not that big either, so it's really hard to hide anything. I have a feeling everybody's going to be living on the rafts for the first few days, unless you're part of a mega tribe. I'm curious to see how this is going to work out, because we won't be able to crowdpod our teams and store them with us. If you didn't play Ark until after Extinction came out, go ahead and look at some old videos just to see how different the game really was back then. At number 9 on the list, we have crossplay between PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. This is a big deal for some players because a lot of people want to play with their friends, but they've been attached to the same console for years. From a gameplay standpoint, I do think this is a little unfair for console players as Ark doesn't have aim assist, and consoles really do struggle to load some areas, especially caves. But I think they already have the solution for this, which is having a set of servers that are dedicated to console players and a set of crossplay servers. I think having a more focused concentration of the player base is going to help keep the servers populated for a long period of time, but it'll also be cool to see the power dynamic between the console and PC tribes. At number 8 is cross progression. This one is definitely not as exciting as the others, but it does allow for mobility of console players who are trying to upgrade to PC. I know one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to stay on Xbox for so long was because I didn't want to have to buy all the games again. This eliminates that problem entirely. The reason that I was able to make the switch to PC was because of the Xbox Game Pass having Ark already. But this stopped me from enjoying the full benefits of PC Ark like mods and Arkapocalypse. Making the game more accessible to everyone is always a step in the right direction, and I think Wildcard really made the right choice with this one. At number 7 is Wild Babies. This is kind of an interesting one because I feel like it won't have a huge impact from a gameplay standpoint. We already saw this with the Karuku Penguin and no one really cared about it. But this is also why it's ranking so low on the list. I think the addition of wild babies could be cool since they're going to allow us to use the Gigantoraptor to learn and imprint them, but this feature being useful is pretty dependent on wild baby imprinting being the best way to get new dinos. If it doesn't make sense to do this, or there's an easier way, people are just going to go back to the old way of tranquilizing dinos and forget about the Gigantoraptor. By the way, if you want to learn more about this dinosaur, check out my last video where I covered everything we currently know about Ark Survival Ascended. Aside from that, let's move on. At number 6, I have the graphics upgrade. Number 6 is kind of a simple one, but it's also one of the most important. Having a graphics upgrade in a game is such a big deal for a couple of reasons. Graphics are becoming a big deal in the modern gaming industry for the sole reason that companies are getting really good at making them. For the PvE community, having better graphics is going to attract a larger player base and overall improve the gameplay experience for everybody. For the PvP community, I have a feeling that you guys are all going to I the hell out of the UE5 graphics, and it's going to look like it was made on the Nintendo 64, but it's still a pretty cool option to have, I guess. Ideally, the ability to have I would be removed, but I'll take what I can get. Regardless, upgrading the graphics is a change that you can never go wrong with. At number 5 on the list, we have the revamped building system. I think this is a pretty big one for a couple of reasons. We've all had that moment when we're trying to place down a structure, and when we left click it goes to a spot that's not even remotely close to what we're looking at. Fixing issues like this is going to improve the overall experience for everyone, similar to number 6, but this isn't the main reason why I think this is a positive change. The real reason why revamping the building system is a positive change is because it might incentivize players to get creative with base defense, and we might be able to experiment and develop new ideas for building as we learn more about it. In Ark Survival Evolved, all the different bases you raided were kind of the same, and there was only one building meta. But in a revamped building system, it's possible we can figure out ways to make different kinds of bases viable beyond boxes with turrets on hatch frames. And number 4 is the removal of movement speed leveling on players. This doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but anybody who's wasted as much of their life on this game as I have knows that this one is going to impact PvP meta more than anything. In ASA, you won't be able to level the movement speed of your character. This is a big deal for a couple reasons. First of all, you won't be able to rocket run turrets anymore, so we're going to have to find new raiding methods. On top of this, we're not going to be able to outrun wild creatures, so the environment is going to become way more of a threat. We saw when the flare nerf happened that making this slight change to the game made the Argent Quets almost completely irrelevant in PvP until people figured out new uses for them like the hatch frame years later. I'm unsure whether this was the right decision, but I do think this will contribute to the idea of a fresh PvP experience in ASA. Number 3 is a huge one, but Wildcard didn't give us much information about it. According to the recent community crunches, Wildcard is going to be working with a cross-platform anti-cheat. I don't know how powerful this anti-cheat is going to be, but if they manage to get this right, Ark will easily become one of the most popular games on the market. The only thing that worries me is that Wildcard may not have incentive to actually construct an efficient anti-cheat because of snail games. I'm not going to elaborate on that because that's such a broad topic, but if you want to learn more about it, just Google snail games controversy and all the information you know will be there. Other than that, if they are able to pull this off, this is going to benefit the game a ton. At number 2, we have the removal of cryopods from the game. I don't know if this is necessarily the best decision to make because cryopods did a lot to help the servers running, but being forced to keep all your dinos outside was one of the reasons that kept tribes from moving into caves. I think losing the massive land bases was one of the turning points for the game where some players say the game died. Regardless of what your opinion about cryopods is, this one is going to change the game for sure, and I think it'll be interesting to experience what the game was like in its infancy, back when raiding was about getting loot instead of getting dinos. And finally at number 1, we have the cave meta nerf. I was torn whether to place this one or cryopods at number 1, but this change is going to be so big for the game that it has to take the top spot. For the past few years, building in caves has been the only way to survive on the game. Having a massive death wall behind a tiny crouch point made bases nearly impossible to raid online. With the cave meta nerf, the entrances to all caves are going to be tweaked to allow certain dinos to walk through. I assume they're talking about soakers. All this means is that people are going to find the next overpowered base building method, but for the time being, it's going to be really interesting to watch tribes struggle to hold down areas that used to be unraidable. That's all I have for the top 10 changes coming to Ark Survival Ascended. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, whether you agree or disagree with my rankings and changes. I was also thinking about starting an official 1x tribe for ASA. A lot of people I've talked to said they won't play the game at launch because they don't have the mega tribe connections, and I think starting a tribe made up entirely of YouTube viewers would be a pretty interesting experiment. I'm not sure if it's been tried before, but I think it would be interesting, so again, let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, hope you have an amazing day.